So abusuya gold board AfenyoMarkin 1.7 billion loss or the betu ja enam so ema Sami Jemfi exposing or using the word extortionist. Sa word no eno ede ensensem bebre and about petitions ahodo aya file to Attorney General Yoko and OSP. And one sem bebre and aye breaki edi ama Parliament I intervene right now no ye ba be frɛ AfenyoMarkin to disciplinary committee emu ayeden edi amana former parliamentary member Inus Afuseni or the nsem bi wa drop submissions and the submissions no ka say sisi ano Ghana ye parliament no eche say ye MPs na omo no corruption cases bebre etwa omo ho ehia en ebedru mre bia Ghana ye parliament impuno MPs no ye mbu omo say ye behu ne say mere parliament ye mbu omo biu cause o hwe ye MPs no corruption cases corruption deals are omo ye involved in it say sa extortionist and as extortion ye say AfenyoMarkin say ye and many me ya no say ye den ko pie mu disciplinary committee na empayinfo ehwe na say omo ye broad investigations and investigations if AfenyoMarkins ye found in the guilty say sanction crown ye be ma AfenyoMarkins ye mfama no with immediate effect yes say mom yanko na a former parliamentary member Inusa Fuseni Nensema or the Tujani Ba Yadiaka Atwam. So unsubscribe ya subscribe and hit it on the notification bell and any update be a dropping also onsa ebe to me. Akamina sana ebe kwa Ghana ha say open computer papa and a laptop papa na where use the Aburia Perosi computers and accessories. Say ho and I'll be your laptop papa na where using the location and ya kwan o Kumase Bokrum Estate Eli peke number na egu ye screen as ne bonra yensem ye ba ye de aka ebe to am so.
Now look at that relationship between the reality and the perception. You've been there before. You've been member of parliament. You were a long-standing member of parliament. You were very respected at a leadership position. This perception of parliament as corrupt, is that reality reflected? Is it reality or it's a figment of our imagination? What is it? Are we being fair to parliament because it's been tagged with this for so long? The trust is almost gone. Is that a reflection of reality?
You must understand that parliament is the intersection between the people and the executive.
Okay.
It's me and you who have decided to give some people the opportunity to represent us in parliament. And there are those people that we can go to. So when we want business transacted in parliament, then we are forced to come up with resources to aid the parliament in discharging the business that we have voted them into office to do. Then we go around, we go away knowing or thinking that these people do not really represent our interests. So it's a perception that comes out of the dealing of parliament itself with the citizen. Okay. If a chief director comes or a minister comes or somebody comes to parliament wanting to transact business in parliament and that person is forced to cough out some resources to be able to aid parliament in, that person is a citizen of this country. He's a voter. He elected that parliament, his member of parliament, to go transact business for him. And now he's being forced to do something to part with resources to be able, that person will go away thinking that this parliament is not a serious parliament. So it's a perception that we can, we don't need to look far to understand why the perception is pervasive. Now, partisan solidarity has even moved beyond parliament. Now we see parties themselves coalescing around their members who have been caught doing an illegality or doing something that is perceived to be illegal. This AfenyoMarkin case, go back and look at what is happening now. Now there's now a lot of fake propaganda, okay, fake news, trying to put words in the mouths of people to make that situation look lesser, of lesser impact. So it is not only in parliament. Our parties themselves do not see wrong. We've made loyalty a commodity that can be purchased. And people do not even want to think of holding their own accountable. And that is the problem. Look, clear opportunity was given to us by the conduct of a member of parliament. He had absented herself from parliament for more than the required number of days. Yeah. Clear. Did parliament arrive at a decision on
No, it's still outstanding.
It's gone. That parliament is gone. The seventh parliament is gone.
You're right, actually.
Now, Dr. Dramani, I see jurisdictional issues here. If the ad hoc committee will also be looking at the privileges and ethics of a member of parliament, that is the conduct of a member of parliament, because the constitution itself determines which committee should do that. And that is the Ethics and Privileges Committee of Parliament, looking into the conduct of members of Parliament. If you give that responsibility to an ad hoc committee, you might be leading yourself to a constitutional challenge, even if the committee finds, because that will not be properly so-called the jurisdictional mandate based on the constitution by the ad hoc committee. So I think that, yes, two issues are at stake here. Did the Bank of Ghana run at a loss? Or was it a policy cost? Was it reasonable? Or something can be done? Can it be improved upon? We need to understand as a people, $1.7 billion is simply too much. Yeah. Who occasioned that loss? How did it come about? We need to understand. Are we prepared as an opportunity cost to forgo the loss for the benefit that comes? We as a people need to understand that there's no better institution to do that than Parliament, because they are our representatives, and that is public resources.
Okay, and who goes into the subject of the allegation?
The subject of our allegation must be a subject matter of the Privileges Committee. That is a conduct.
But they have a very terrible record with probing members of Parliament on this subject.
I agree. But the Constitution says that the conduct of a member of Parliament must be a subject matter for the Privileges Committee.
Dr. Draman makes a very important point that in our jurisdictions, Parliament invites external bodies into the picture. Is that possible?
This ad hoc committee will require experts. So if you are going to establish an ad hoc committee, you can bring in external persons with expertise to help the ad hoc committee to unravel Is it
the same ad hoc committee that will be looking at the loss subject?
Yes.
But considering how important you believe this corruption tag is, and how our very democratic survival as a country is hinged on it, shouldn't that be a separate, wide-ranging, purpose-built investigation, not tied to the gold ball? Because it will be missing in the gold ball loss or not loss. Because that's a highly child political.
So let's do what reasonable people do. What are the issues? What are the issues that confront us today? The issue is that the IMF has detected a $1.7 billion loss, $1.7 billion loss that threatens that poses significant risk to the operations of the Bank of Ghana. That is for the Bank of Ghana. The IMF says that that loss is as a result of the implementation of a policy called the Domestic Gold Purchase Program. Okay? Now, we know that in the Domestic Gold Purchase Program, various actors are involved. Now, we have since May done away with that aspect of the program that is known as gold for oil. Since May. Now they are implementing that policy in relation to gold for reserves. What is the role of individual actors within the value chain that have contributed to this loss? We need to understand.
So that's the purpose of the ad hoc committee.
Now, so when you take the facts of the case and look at the roles of the various individuals, we must come to a reasonable conclusion that this is what has happened. We need to understand. And then Ghanaians will now take a decision whether in view of the policy, the risk associated with the policy and the benefits, the cost-benefit relationship, we want that policy to continue. That's a different matter. That is not about criminality at all. That's about the policy.
Yeah.
But it is totally criminal, unacceptable for anybody to use his office or her office for the purposes of subordinating a public interest to a private interest.
So how do you fix that now? This is an opportunity.
That problem should be fixed by the Public Accounts Committee. By the Privileges Committee, because the conduct of a member of parliament is involved here. The most serious sanction is expulsion from parliament under the Privileges Committee rules. The most serious sanction. Now, if you want to restore the integrity of parliament, you need to go into the conduct of the member of parliament must be a subject matter of investigation, and to assure everybody that either, that conduct, the investigations into the conduct has been fair, impartial, and transparent, and you arrive at a decision. So Dr. Dramani is right. When corruption is pervasive in a society, you need morally upright men to launch a revolution, nothing short of a revolution.
Do you have that in Parliament? Those morally upright men who can do this job on the committee?
Well, you're not expecting me to condemn the whole Parliament.
But if that's what you need, and your conclusion is that the Privileges Committee must do it, then you must ask that natural follow-up question.
Yeah, I think that we do.
Okay.
I think that not all members of Parliament are the same. I think that we need to understand that that's what is confronting us is public resources. Can you imagine that indeed, if it is true that a member of parliament went to take money to hash money, they call it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what it does to accountability?
It is very, you made the point at the beginning. And I want to bring in Adam Senanu. Adam, so where you stand on that point, Inus's point, who takes the lead on this to get to the bottom of this matter for the sake of the parliamentary integrity and the integrity of our democracy?
Well, I think that Parliament itself needs to purge itself by doing the minimum, which would be set up, allow the Privileges Committee to do its work. If you need external persons to give even more credibility, they ought to do that. And I would go for that. I think that many more external persons who have expertise in the space and whose credibility will be brought to bear on whatever findings will be very key. But I also think that if there were any other entities, because, for example, the issue of extortion is a corruption issue. So if it is something that the OSP or YOCO needs to take up, let them also take it up, such that the multiple sources of investigation and reports will give us a much more comprehensive understanding of what is going on. If you just leave Parliament to do it, trust me, we are likely to have the two parties there telling us stories by the time the report comes out. And you now have this whole partisan solidarity still going on. Mind you, the issue that I think was Dr. Dramani raised of fake news. No, it wasn't Dr. Dramani.
That's Inusa.
Yeah, it was Inusa. That's exactly how I feel. I mean, I've gone through the IMF report, 182 pages. Nowhere does it say that Gold Board has made a loss. And anyone who understands what is there will see that, okay, the Bank of Ghana owes fees to Gold Board. So when you have a minority coming to make that kind of thing, it's misleading. In my mind, I'm like, what's wrong with these people? And then now you come and say you have solidarity behind. What are you talking about? This is how they lose us, because you're listening to them. You're a professional. You understand the figures. You're wondering, how can they take this trajectory when the facts do not go in that direction? So our political parties need to be very careful. This thing of now getting into fake news, I think that this is a good discussion we are having, and thinking through it, how they carry along citizens without leaving us thinking that now all of these people don't have any ethics, they are just corrupt, is something they should bear in mind as they engage with us.
John, what's your proposal?
In terms of who looks at the issue.
Yes, who takes this matter up and does the thorough work?
I would go to the constitutionally designed body, which is the Ethics and Privileges Committee. And you just hope and trust and believe that within this context of the image of Parliament as an institution, that they would do an independent.
But John, I know you
without
say
fear
I
of
know
payback.
you use three things: hope, pray. You know, the evidence is staring you in the face. This is 1992 to now. The evidence have told you that it just hasn't happened. Why do you think it will happen now?
But you know, Evans, there also comes a point where I believe every institution has its moment of reckoning, right? That hopefully, if the members of Parliament are fully aware of the public perceptions of the institution, I'm not saying that if someone is not guilty, they should have a committee and pronounce them guilty. No, but I'm also saying that fully aware of how the public is perceiving Parliament as an institution, that and here's me using the word hope again, that hopefully they would seize this opportunity to try and say we need to restore the image of Parliament and look beyond the partisan divide, the partisan solidarity, and really try and give some assurance to the people of Ghana that we do take these issues seriously, that we can put our partisan differences aside and look at it dispassionately. Because if we miss this opportunity, then where does that leave us? It just again reinforces the public perception of Parliament.
Yeah, and Dr. Draman, you work very closely with the MPs. You consult with them. You help them out when they are facing difficulties. Sometimes you help them with just simply separating themselves when they are clashing. Do you get a sense that there is the appetite in Parliament right now, that will to get to the bottom of this, to do something very different with this allegation? Do you even get a sense that they appreciate the gravity of the allegation against that office and the institution, that there's even that desire, having appreciated it, to take action?
Ivan, so whilst I was preparing for this conversation, there's one fundamental question that I kept asking myself, and it is whether Parliament has the institutional courage to investigate itself creditably. I've been searching for that answer, and like Dr. Kwapon said, I think I can only pray and hope, because the pattern, the data, the history doesn't show that, doesn't answer the question in the affirmative. However, I think the hope is that, as he rightly said, there comes a moment when maybe institutions would say this is a wake-up moment. And I hope that this would be a wake-up moment for our Parliament. And the one important other thing, whilst we are dealing with this, looking at things much broadly and much strategically for the image of our Parliament, I think we have gotten to a point where perhaps rules alone cannot change the image of Parliament. We need some shifts in norms and shifts in behavior and thinking. I mentioned partisan solidarity. It's important to solidarize with your colleagues. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's also important to recognize at all times the public's right to know what the truth is. And I think for our members of Parliament, this will be my message to them. You belong to the same party. I mean, whenever these things happen, yes, come around, support your colleagues. But also remember, the voter is watching you, and that the voter has the right to know what the truth is. And I hope that perhaps maybe with this, we might begin to see some change.
Good. Sir.
I think that this is a defining moment. Solidarity, yes. But if you solidarize with your colleague in the perpetration of wrong or crime, you're also a conspirator in the concealment of that crime. let's coalesce around values. And there are enough values in the preamble of our constitution to awaken us to our responsibilities as Ghanaians. Political parties, and in this case, particularly the MPP and its news media, it is not the case that you should go into overdrive to produce fake news for the purposes of defending an individual. We have values as a country. Let's stand by those values and get the right thing to be done now.
Which is because this is an allegation. Yeah.
And
get to the bottom of it.
Because we need this movement, we need to exploit this movement as a defining moment in the history of Parliament.
To purge itself.
To purge itself.
Okay. And I want to take a break. When I return, I will introduce another dimension to the conversation, which is why are MPs corrupt? And I say that because you say that that's based on the assumption that they are. Well, it hasn't been proving, as we've just illustrated. But some of the MPs themselves have come out to tell us that they are. But they ascribe a reason to why they have no other choice than to be. And I think the member of parliament that I've heard articulate this in this most starkest of terms is Sam George. And we'll play that interview to you very briefly. It's a very short clip, but he elucidates on that subject in a way that I've not heard anybody publicly admit before.
So abusuya we ne ensema course so e political highway ne so eye Kwame na Alexander AfenyoMarkin abusuya eye the extortionist allegation Sami Jemfi and as or file allegations no against him no yede ne kwa kopie mu disciplinary committee yede ho nsem ebrem ebeda mase some jepene kokoti sa ensem we edemai